It is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. It is getting interesting and exciting out there in our big old world, isn't it, Mike?
We are in the final week, and in fact, this is the final show before the final showdown. Save America or throw it to the curb. That's kind of the decision we're going to see on Tuesday. Listen, we've got a very, very full show today and a whole bunch of ground to cover. We've got Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft and Miles Bauer, my co-hosts, in the studio with... What are you laughing about, Ludwig?
If I ever run again, I'll have to run as Ludwig.
You're going to be Ludwig, I'm telling you. I introduce him at meetings as Ludwig, if you folks are curious. Anyway, and Diane Schindlbeck is in the studio with us. Welcome, Diane.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
And on the line with us is former Congressman Pete Hoekstra and the current co-chair. Is that right?
I believe so. I didn't screen the call yet, but I answered it.
It may be him.
Yeah.
And the current...
It is him.
There you go. Welcome, Pete Hoekstra.
Hey, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Bo, it's kind of a bumpy start, but I was having fun there for a second. Hey, we're in the final week, as you heard me talk about, and I'm certain you're absolutely aware of it. But one of the reasons I really wanted to get you back on the show in the final stretch, Pete, is I know that you've spent some time with Donald Trump on airplane flights and in more of a different kind of setting than most folks have an opportunity to have contact with him on. What do you describe him? How do you describe him, Pete, as just a man?
I think he's inquisitive. He has a sense of humor. He is intense, although not in a harsh way. He grasps issues. Works through them, and he operates very much like a CEO or another leader of an organization that I've worked, that I've been affiliated or associated with before. He's very similar to those kinds of leaders. And so, that's why I have a high degree of confidence that Donald Trump in the Oval Office has the demeanor, has the temperament, has the capability and the intellect to be president of the United States.
Listen, those are the exact words that our opposition would define in opposite of him, which is why it's so important not to let other people define who he is other than the folks like you that know him. And in the final stretch, it's critical. But, we've had some fascinating turns of events in the last few days. But one of them, the media likes to point to the FBI investigation, which obviously is critical. That's having an impact. But listen, the other thing about it is that the media, bless their hearts, is actually playing some of the things that he's actually saying, rather than taking snippets out of a 30-second snippet out of a 2-hour presentation to use it against him. We're actually having an opportunity to sit in our living rooms and listen to him for a minute. And what a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think what the Main Street media and a lot of the pollsters are doing in this last week is they recognize that the American people are going in a different direction than where they are. And, the media is now complaining and whining about, wow, the people at the Trump rallies they're mad at us. And it's kind of like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Because for 3 months, you've been going into Donald Trump's speeches, and I was at one of them where he was talking about veterans and the terrible tragedy that our veterans are facing every day because they're getting terrible care from the VA, and I think it's 22 veterans per day are committing suicide, and he was talking emotionally about how tough it is for people coming back from a war zone. And to integrate back into everyday American life when they've maybe seen some of their friends killed, when they've maybe killed some of the enemy, and these types of things. He was, and the people in the room were all senior military people. And when he got done, they gave him a standing applause. And the media goes back and says, Trump says American soldiers not strong. And, it's kind of like, well, you know what? I think if Donald Trump had said to 250 of our, senior military people or retired military people that American soldiers were not strong, they would have booed him out of the room. They would not have given him a standing applause. But, it was the media going back into their spin room and saying, basically, how can we screw Trump today?
You know,
And
on that point, Pete, one of the interesting things when you're talking about the military is here a few weeks ago there was a question about whether he would fire senior military staff in a given situation. The media went haywire with it, but it seemed like they were absolutely ignoring the hundreds of senior-ranking military that President Obama has dismissed over the years out of an ideological test rather than military competency. It's just they defy gravity with their one-way look at this topic.
Yeah, and this is one where he's going to go into office, yes, and he's going to look at the intelligence people, and he's going to look at the military people, and he's going to look at the intelligence and the military assessment that they provided to Barack Obama. Prior to going into Libya, was the intelligence community predicting that hey, if Gaddafi's gone, don't worry, Libya will become a strong, solid democracy. When the military people were giving advice to the president about Syria and ISIS, did the military people say ISIS was the JV team? Did the intelligence people say that ISIS was the JV team? If they did, yeah, I'd fire them too.
Right.
Because, both of those things were totally wrong, and they've led to tremendous consequences. In Libya, we have a failed state. In Syria, we've got 500,000 people who are dead. Now, I think in both of those cases, it may be true that the intelligence community and the military people gave the president different information, and he decided to ignore it and went his own way. Well, then it's okay. Then leave the intelligence folks and the military folks alone. But if they were telling him, "Don't worry, we can get rid of Assad in a few months," and those types of things, they would have been wrong, and it would have led to the creation of ISIS and 500,000 people dying in Syria.
A few weeks ago, Donald Trump made a statement that the senior staff of the military had given President Obama a very different view on the ground than the path that President Obama took, which was ideological rather than following military. And the irony to that is, or the sad part to that, is that the media only picked up on one part of that, and they tried to attack Donald Trump for revealing the information he'd gotten in his private national security reviews. And the irony of it is that's not how America is supposed to be. If he would have seen those things and not made a statement, I would have had a problem with him. I think that we're putting lives in harm's way, both the folks that live in those theaters and our own U.S. military, for some bent ideological feel-good thing. The American electorate has the opportunity to now just say to the Obama ideology and the Clinton ideology, "You're fired."
Oh yeah, no, that's right. And the Donald Trump has he's not created his own server. He didn't delete 30,000 emails that were under subpoena from Congress. And this whole Anthony Weiner thing now, Mike, what I'm hearing is that the reason that the FBI got all over this as quickly as they did is as they started looking at Anthony Weiner, who is the husband of Huma Abedin, who is the key advisor to Hillary Clinton, is as they started going through there, my information, and is that what they found is they found top secret documents on there, and that's what triggered this whole statement by Comey last week. And he back in the summer he said Hillary Clinton was reckless with classified and secret information. Only now may we finally start to see the depth and the breadth of how reckless she was. And then, you've got her campaign manager, when he heard about these emails, said, "We need to get rid of them." It's like, whoa.
That just says it, absolutely says it all, Pete. And the media still is able to put it behind them and point at some nonsense. Listen, we're out of time, Pete Hoekstra, but I really, really appreciate you joining us. And we'll talk during the week, I hope, but I'm hoping to get you on next week to do an election review of Trump's victory.
We will we'll be happy to be with you next week, Mike. I will write it down for 9:05 next week, Wednesday.
I'll look forward to it. Pete Hoekstra, thank you very much.
Thanks, you bet. All right, hey, bye, Mike.
Folks, we'll be right back.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
The Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com, and we are flying into segment 2 already, a mere 6 days from Election Day.
I'm telling you, this is the final 2-minute warning of the biggest Super Bowl probably in our lifetime. It's a big deal. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft and Miles Bauer, as always, and our guest in the studio today. What's so funny? I don't get it. And our
Too many names.
Ludwig, he's only got one name. That's Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft. And in the studio with us is Diane Schindlbeck. Welcome, Diane.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Listen, last week when we were on the air and we were doing kind of a review of where we're at, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but we talked about you a little bit.
About me being present? I'm scared.
Well, and then after the show, I thought, wait, I have a brilliant idea. And listen, folks, just to give you the background, if you missed last week, when I've been involved in politics long enough to get fat and bald. And isn't that right, Miles?
No comment.
Thank you, sir. So I tell you that because over the course of the years, once in a while, you'll meet someone who I affectionately refer to as a spark plug, somebody that just drives the engine. And in West Michigan, at least in the 2nd District, which I chair, where I get to see kind of like a bird's eye view, it's you, Diane. You are just an incredible amount of energy. There's a lot of folks, and I don't want to overstate it, because there's a lot of folks all over that can hear our voices right now that are really putting everything in. Cal Dykstra and Linda and Fred Birch, who was a big cruiser that understands the process, got involved and helped with the Trump campaign. Faith Steckety way up north, and Jack Holmes down in Holland, who's a retired Hope Poli-Sci teacher that's in it 100% ding-to-dong the whole day, every day, 6 days a week. I tell you that because I don't want to overstate it, but I've never seen anybody like you. One of my
husband always says.
Oh yeah. God bless him. I don't know how he puts up with, so I'm teasing. But listen, I remember you pulled up at one point and you had signs everywhere in your vehicle, so it looked like right out of one of those science comedies is the word I'm hunting for.
It is. I'm a billboard going down the road.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Folks,
yes.
You had to see it. Now, she's all squished down in her seat, and you're not all that tall to start with, but there's a whole bunch of signs above her head and beside her and behind her. How'd you get in?
I am pretty good at that right now because once a week I make a trip to Lansing, down to the headquarters in Lansing for the campaign, and I bring back the 4x8s, and I'm pretty good at fitting those in my vehicle now. I do take a little towels or some coats and stick them above my head and my headrest, and so far I haven't been pulled over for not being able to see well.
I was kind of half wondering that, but I didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah, I know.
You could see perfectly directly in front of you.
That's correct, yes.
Nothing behind you, nothing beside you.
That's right, I stay in the right lane.
Listen, the real reason that I wanted you on, though, other than to say thank you for what you're doing, but the other thing is if I listen to the media, one of the things that they're not talking about, and I think Miles and I are in absolute lockstep on this part that I'm getting ready to say, and Ludwig, we never know where he's going to be on the topic, but it's here Miles giggling. It's a measure of enthusiasm is what this race is about. I think America is really plus or minus 1 or 2% as divided as it's always been. I say that because we keep hearing America's really divided. Well, no, it's really not. It's always been this divided, folks. It was this divided in 1960 when JFK stole the election. It was this divided at the Civil War. It's always been this divided. We may be a little more civil than we were in the Civil War, but not much. And folks, it's always been that way. But this election, in my heart, is going to go to enthusiasm. And if I were a progressive, and folks, I try to put that hat on for a minute and think, what would I think? What would I think if I were a young Bernie supporter that read WikiLeaks where the lead story within the Clinton campaign says I'm a stupid young person? I'd go, what? You want me to do what for you? I'm not going to have signs stacked on my head driving up and down the lake shore for someone that thinks I'm a young and stupid person. Honest. And if I were a senior citizen and a Democrat, and I thought, you know what, I've been honest all of my life, these are my beliefs, how can you get to that point in life and say, I'm going to vote for her, even though I've watched for 40 years that she's a criminal? I say these things because people like you are going to make this election be a Trump victory.
It's so amazing, Mike. Even just, here's a short little story yesterday. I'm in the store, and I happened to take a phone call, and it was talking about my man, Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, a lady standing next to me, like an aisle over, came around the corner, and she's like, thank you. And she goes, I don't mean to be over listening, to your phone conversation. She says, but thank you for supporting Donald Trump. He is going to win. I mean, everywhere I go, I get more, even as my vehicle is a driving billboard, I get more people giving me thumbs up and saying yes. I still go back to his silent majority.
Last night, I grabbed signs from that event, and I coached the Grand Valley hockey team.
I can tell.
I walked in the locker room, and I go, hey, guys, I got 4 signs in my car. Who wants them? Everybody's screaming, I want a sign, I want a sign. I said, I only have 4. Okay, you, and you get them. I will have more by Thursday, so if you have more on you, I'm getting some. Because
there's more at the shop also.
Want them.
Yeah.
They do. Every time I stop at a gas station, I mean, I was in Lansing because I make my weekly trip to Lansing. Coming back, and I'll stop at the gas station. I'll be at a Lansing gas station handing out signs. I mean, So they're out there. And so many people last week coming into our headquarters here in Muskegon and saying, wasn't ready to put one out. I was a little scared.
People, listen, that's an important word right there. There's been some people that were terrorized
scared
for putting these signs out. Did you see the one picture from way up north in the 2nd District where somebody had 3 or 4 signs stretched out along the side of their road?
Yeah, and someone ran them over?
Except for they also ran over the board filled with nails. So the next image is the guy changing his tire. God works in mysterious ways. Oh. I'm telling you.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. But
I had a friend just post on Facebook. He pulled up to his house and saw 2 teenage girls running out of his front yard, and they had pulled a sign. He was like, I pulled in. I said, you better put it back or I'm calling the cops. So they went back. They put it back in. He said, don't touch it again. It's a federal felony, and I will call the cops. But he caught him in the act of doing it.
Right.
Oh, good.
Now, Miles, you're there in the great state, the People's Republic of Illinois.
Exactly. Yeah.
Big red flag with a yellow star on it.
It is so humiliating to be from here when you see the polls down here. I mean, it is bad.
And she's 12 up in Illinois, right?
What's that?
Is she 12 up in Illinois?
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of criminals in Illinois that feel some camaraderie with her, or what's up?
The only solace I can take is that she's got a bigger lead in California than she has in Illinois. So, at least we're not leading the country.
Well, they haven't pulled the dead people in Chicago yet. Otherwise, you'd have a bigger lead in your state. I'm kind of embarrassed to talk to you about it.
What made me bring up the Illinois thing is we're over talking about how many Trump signs we're seeing. I'm going, wonder how many Miles has seen.
One in his bedroom.
Yeah, and
little bumper sticker, but it's hidden on the bottom of his glove box. Okay.
What is odd here is that you just don't see signs.
Right,
I mean,
because everyone's afraid. I think there's more support there, and I think when you get to the election day, obviously she's going to carry Illinois. That said, the numbers are going to be vastly stronger than what the mainstream media would have us believe. I think those polls are all what we call push polls. They're designed to stop people like Diane from working hard. They're designed to make you think, oh, jeepers, it's lost, I'm going to quit working. And not only that, but I'm not going to bother on Tuesday. That's the uber left that are funded by global corporations. I'm not trying to be shrill or conspiratorial. That's just the facts. That's where the money comes from. Go ahead, Diane.
Hey, Miles. It's okay.
Yes.
I've been following the Cubs here, but is Game 7 tonight in Chicago? Or is it in
No,
Cleveland?
the game 7 is in Cleveland.
Oh, because I was going to tell you should go organize like a flash mob there, right there down by the Cubs game, and get out there and show all your support for Trump and get all those people out there with you.
But only if you've got a concealed carry license.
Correct.
Yeah, and if you have enough room for 3 of you.
What a different environment from
Different.
state to state. But listen, I think that's what the founders had in mind, not to get too down that path, but that's why with all of these different states serve as experiments, and then you get to vote with your feet, Miles.
Well, we're fortunate in Michigan, though,
Right.
because there Chicago carries the state. Here, we have a section of our state that can overtake the Detroit region.
Listen, we've got to go to a break, folks. Diane, please stay on with us.
I'm here.
Folks, we'll be right back.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.
You are listening to the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. Mike, man, we are flying today again.
It really just an hour. Miles said this quite a while ago. An hour just isn't enough. There's so much floating around. I remember when we first started the show, going a whole hour. I got to do that. Now it goes by in like 2 seconds, and I'm going. I had so much more I didn't get into. Anyways, folks, if you're just dialing in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky and Miles Bauer. And our guest today is Diane Schindlbeck, who is West Michigan's Trump campaign spark plug.
Good morning.
So good.
Good. Lots of things happening.
Oh, it really is.
Last night was wonderful, and I know you had Pete Hoekstra on earlier.
Yep.
And him and Pastor Smith at Fricano's last night was phenomenal. If you missed it, you can see him again in Holland tomorrow night.
Right. Now, will Pastor Smith be down there?
Yes, Pastor Smith and Pete Hoekstra, both of them.
Listen, folks, I got it. I'm glad you brought that up because I had it on my list, and I wanted to talk about some of Pastor Smith's comments, or at least one of them. He talked for quite a while, but he left me with maybe just, if nothing else, one driving point. First off, so you can envision this, Pastor Smith is obviously a Christian. You can tell that by his title. He's a very nice man. He's a very conservative man. He's a black guy. But listen, one of the things he talked about pushing back on Jim Crow policies. He talked about the civil rights movement in that era. But he also talked about something that really resonated with me, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it today, and that's that his liberty isn't for sale. Oh. And listen, I got to tell you something. That for just a moment, it stopped me. Because I'm fairly involved, folks, and so I had people around me talking, and Ludwig talking, and when he said that, it really hit home with me. It did, because folks, if you're over there trading your liberty for some socialistic promise of some extra do-re-mi for free, what an ugly, superficially ignorant and shallow trade you're making. So here's this man, he's a black guy, and he articulates the history. He's not walking away from it. This is what it's been. And we have liberty now, and mine isn't for sale. I thought he's powerful.
His family is just so lovely. That's the word I use to describe them. I mean, his message last night was just unbelievable. And I'm like, I can't wait to go to his church someday. I mean, I want to hear more of him.
Right.
He's phenomenal. So, what a great man.
Warm, open man. I've met him a number of times, but I've really never had an opportunity to hear him speak until last night. It's always been at some political gathering where you meet people, but you don't really know them.
Right.
Now, I can say I know him, but that'd be kind of a fib because I never sat and talked with him. Listening to him speak, I was very impressed because he talked about the core of what we're debating right now in the United States of America. Really, that's the core of it. It isn't Trump. It isn't Hillary. It's, are we going to be a free society,
right,
or are we going to be a socialist European society? And I think everyone knows where I'm at. Based on how hard you're working, I'm guessing where you're at,
Absolutely.
Diane.
Yes.
And I'm Miles, when you hear that kind of thing about someone proclaiming they're not going to trade their liberty away for a pittance, what do you think?
No, I've seen him several times prior to Trump coming out on the rallies. When I've watched some of the rallies online, and he does some really great speeches, makes some very strong ideas. So yeah, no, I completely agree.
Well, while we're all here, one of the things that Miles and I have been debating for a little bit is what is the morning after the election. So let's assume a Trump victory, because I think the math says that's where we're at this point. We don't know the future. Jeepers, I'd be in a whole world of different financial condition if I could predict what tomorrow will be or what will be in 5 minutes, for that matter. Having said that, let's pretend that Trump wins, and it's the morning after. What condition is the Republican Party going to be in?
That's when our work's going to start.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
We're going to get him in office, get him elected, and we're going to follow his lead and do some grassroots efforts to make America great again. We really work hard.
Off the air just a minute ago, folks, Miles and I were talking back and forth about what is the current percentage of Republican folks that acknowledge themselves as Republican. What's the percent of support from those folks? And I know a month ago when we talked on this topic, it was in the low 70s, and the most recent numbers I saw had them actually rivaling where Romney was at before. Without that party support, that foundation support, he cannot make it. But when I look at the percentages, and I watch Facebook, because folks who have listened to the show know I've often whined, for lack of better words, about the circular shooting gallery that goes on sometimes on both sides of the fence, by the way, folks. Mm-hmm. So if you're a progressive clapping like a penguin right now, understand it happens on the Democratic Party side also, and has been happening even in the last segment. Well, earlier when I was talking about how can a Bernie supporter hear that they're a stupid person and still support the person that called them stupid. So I don't get that. But all of that stuff aside, is there going to be a civil war, to use the term, or are we going to learn how to bring these sides together? And I'm smiling when I say that, folks, because A, I didn't want to talk about it today, but B, this has been the conversation within the Republican Party since Barry Goldwater. So this isn't something that Trump brought to the party. This is the difference, in my view at least. I call it a three-leg chair. You've got the evangelical Christians, you've got the libertarian folks that lean conservative, and the establishment. The question has been, can those three sides work together? Right now, the last number I saw was in the 90s that say those folks are going to be voting for Donald Trump. That tells me they can work together. To your point, I agree with you. There's going to be a lot of work to do on day one, November 9th. And on that show that morning, we'll be talking about this, I promise you.
Yeah.
So, Miles, what do you think? Is there a civil war?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty certain, especially as being a longtime Trump publican, we're going to kind of look at the never Trumpers and ask, where in the hell were you?
Right.
While we were sitting here taking the arrows. And if he loses and then they get up on television and they start ripping on us for, you guys should have gotten in line a long time ago, that's also going to create a certain amount of resentment. So I'm not looking forward to it, but as you and I have talked often, I think we're headed for some real challenging times.
If he loses, I agree with you. If he wins, I think everyone's want to get on the bus, whether they did or whether they didn't. And my view of that would be is that those folks that want to look back, assuming he wins, and say, hey, you weren't on the bus 60 days ago, I think that those folks are trying to take the bus in the wrong direction. If he wins, we should be working on using the 4 years he's got. And that's my first prediction, by the way. If he wins, he's got 4 years to go down there and flip the tables upside down and say, okay, now you need new tables. Let's start again. And if we immediately jump back into the circular firing squad, shame on us. We deserve disaster. And that's how I feel about it. I got to tell you, when I was elected to the position of second district chair, they called me the consensus candidate. Let me tell you what I figured out that meant. It meant you get shot at from both sides. It really does. So the Tea Party folks, of whom I've been a part of since I talked on the steps in Grand Haven that morning on back in April of 2009, they were shooting at me. The establishment was shooting at me. I said, I must be doing something good, okay? But
that's the first sign.
My point, though, is that if we win, to get into that argument is foolhardy. If we lose, then yes, everybody in the world is going to want to be saying, whose fault is it? Absolutely agree with that half of this pickle.
No, and, so I can certainly see that. But if you have the establishment trying to go into the Trumpers and say, okay, now that you guys have won, why don't you see it our way and start passing our laws and our vision? And that I think is where the conflict is going to come, because there was a sentiment that brought about the Trump movement. That sentiment is not going away just because we won.
Listen, Miles, I remember we're almost out of this segment, but I remember going to a state convention in 2010 that they filled a gigantic stadium with grassroots from the state of Michigan, and they missed that opportunity. They have one more, and if they don't take advantage of this, it will be doomed. But I'm not there yet. We'll talk about that on November 9th. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Listen, he's giving me the we're out of time sign. Folks, we're going to be right back in just a few minutes with the Enigma Report.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
The Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com.
3, 2, 1, 0.
You have arrived to your final destination on your journey through reality. Welcome to the Enigma Report.
And so I asked the question, what if? And I'm really serious. I'm really, truly serious about this question. What if in the future we had political campaigns and political parties that didn't campaign and didn't even recognize race and gender? And I'm very serious about that. I tell you that because I am so absolutely sick of gender politics and race politics. When I look at a group of people, I don't go, holy mackerel, there are 4 of these and 2 of those and 1 of those. And I imagine myself standing in a minority, of which I'm not, so let me say that up front, and thinking, jeepers, they just identified me. I don't want to be identified as anything but a citizen of the United States. I didn't have, by the way, I had a different Enigma report set up for today until I listened to Pastor Philip Smith last night. And I mean that sincerely, because I sit and I think, I'm looking around the room. There was a fair number of black people. They were Americans that happened to be black. You're an American that happens to have red hair.
Right.
I don't see it any different. Ludwig is, never mind, I can't go there. That'd be a different enigma. So the point here is that this is just ugly, divisive, Soviet-styled politics in my book. Miles, am I nuts?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that that is the entire point, is to divide us up into groups. It's called identity politics, and then in that way they can continue to have us fight amongst ourselves rather than look and see what's going on.
I don't know if the political parties, both of them, by the way, I don't know if it's the political parties or the media or school. I don't know who drives that narrative. But to me, it's insulting when they look, when folks in general, whether it's either major political party, or any of the major state or national candidates, when they look at communities or districts or states, they're identifying where they're going to give their message and how they're going to craft it.
Mike, I couldn't agree more. I mean, what you're talking about, when we were in Cleveland and, so many media all over the place, they were coming up to us all the time and saying, you're a woman, why do you support Trump? To me, why does that matter? Even as a female, I could not agree more, because if I cannot do the job, then I don't deserve the job. I mean, that's how I feel. I don't feel I deserve anything different because I'm a female.
I want the pay of a winning National Football League quarterback, but I cannot do the job. I just want the recognition and the
Right.
pay.
Exactly.
Listen, but it works the other thing. When we get into who can do what and who ought to do this and who ought to do that, folks, it's divisive. It's evil. It's how they are
Couldn't agree
able
more.
to do what they do. When I looked in that room last night that we were standing in, it was kind of like you wanted to make a joke out of it and say, okay, all of the folks with your color, by the way, you were the only one there with that color hair.
My nickname's Red.
I'm teasing her, obviously. But listen, to divide everybody up into it's segregation. I don't care what you want to call it. It's segregation. It's how they do it, and it's how they keep us segregated.
And Pastor Smith kept earlier yesterday, he and I were having a conversation before the event, and we were talking about, it'd be like, okay, I'm an Irish. And
No.
Yes.
I would
I'm
have
a
never
sweet
guessed
Irish.
that.
Swedish Irish. But I mean, talking about, if you're African American, like he said, he goes, I'm not an African American because then we should bring in, he goes, I actually have some Indian descent. We should start talking about that. No,
Yep.
I'm an American. I was born here, raised here. I'm an American. Could not agree more.
The hyphenations are they're an extension. They're how you can get to verbalize that. But I don't understand the politics. When I look at a neighborhood as a campaign, when I'm doing consulting for politics, maybe that's why you lost, Ludwig. I didn't look at a neighborhood and say, let's deliver the female message to the females, and if there's anybody from India, and if there's anybody, I just don't look at people that way.
I don't either. No.
And as a society, it's an enigma to me why we don't say, stop it. We are not going to allow you to divide us up anymore. It ain't going to happen again. But we don't. We fall right into it.
We have to stop being quiet. That's what I keep saying too.
Well, I'm
exactly
not.
Exactly what you said.
I'm really bad at being quiet.
I'm usually not the one that's silent in the room. And
No.
with you two, I haven't said much.
You're usually the one everyone. Nah, never mind.
What is that telling us?
Just take it for what
I
it's
agree.
worth.
We have to stand up and stop it.
Yeah, you know what? The other way of doing it is I'm not going to respond to it.
Right.
Because everyone, the reason it works is because people respond to it. I'm not going to
That's what they
respond
want
to
is
it.
a reaction.
Yeah, I'm just flat. Not, and that's probably my classical liberal pouring out a little bit. I'm not going to respond to it. If it doesn't exist, that messaging, I'm not going to allow it to have an effect on me.
Nope.
It's an enigma to me personally why everybody else doesn't feel the way I do on that.
Well, this is something you're taught. You're not just.
No, you're
born
grown
this
up
way.
believing it. Absolutely.
Right.
You're definitely taught
The
it.
messaging on it. And listen, by the way, I am also a traditional conservative, along with what I call a Jeffersonian leaning conservative. That's who I am. So I'm not trying to bake cookies and get you to play football. I don't. You define your own world. That's not what I'm saying. Just so everyone understands that, I want to back up a little bit. I'm not trying to get this gender-neutral society where everyone is a gender-neutral person. That's not what I'm pushing here. What I'm saying is I'm not going to let you folks to corral each one of the little groups into their own little segment so that you can say your message to them and spend a different lie for that group and a different lie for that group, because I'm paying attention.
Companies are getting in on this too, like CoverGirl.
That's ugly how they
A
do it.
17-year-old boy is now the face of CoverGirl, a women's makeup company.
Yeah, I'm just...
I was flabbergasted. Like, what is this? Just another Caitlyn Jenner point? Like, let's see how far we can push the envelope before people finally revolt.
I listen, as a capitalist, obviously they're finding money in it, and they don't care about the cultural
we'll see.
references. But
And everything's come out. However, have you heard about Bud Light and their ads?
No.
They're dropping all their ads with Amy Schumer, who's the actress who went off about Trump, and half of her crowd left about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because millennials aren't buying it because they're sick of the Democratic voice used by Bud Light. And there's been a big article on it.
I'm the other way though, and I'm guilty of what you're just describing. We were talking about a coffee company, and I don't want to talk about them on the air right now. But I specifically don't go there. I don't like the product, but I don't go there anyway. So if I'm with a group of people and they do go and I go, I don't give them a penny of my money because I reject their politics. They're not getting a penny of my money. They're anti-Christian. They're anti-gun. They're anti-my Constitution. They're anti-my liberty. They can go somewhere because they won't get any of my do-re-mi. That's my feeling on that. So I'm That's how I am. And
the thing
by
is,
the
it's
way,
millennials.
and by the
that are
way,
speaking
though,
up.
before we run out of time, on that note, I own a small business, and I've been very upfront with my business. Got Trump signs. I think we've had 2,000 Trump signs go through my little dinky shop in Nunica. So,
yes.
I mean, and on that note, I got to talk one more time before we run out of show an independent election. Folks like Doug and Ted Fricano that stand up remind them, like I said a couple weeks ago, they remind me of our founding fathers. We want successful people standing up to say, let me show you how to be successful. You stand up for what you believe in and you do not back off. That's successful people. No, I'm not going to allow your political correctness to shut me up. Not one more inch.
That's right.
I stand with them. And it's important for folks to understand that, like my comment on the coffee company, there will be people that reject them for being honest.
And what
Okay.
is so amazing, Mike, on that note, too, is both of them say their business has never been better. I mean, the media is sitting there saying some of the negative comments about it.
Media was, but listen,
Right.
things like the 2nd District Republican Committee that I chair had its Christmas party arranged somewhere else. Guess what I did last night? We moved it to Fricano.
Oh, awesome.
Okay? Because it's important to support
support.
the folks that support liberty.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
on the side of liberty. Doesn't mean I agree with everybody that's on my side. I agree with most of everybody on my side, and I definitely agree with folks taking a stand.
What's amazing about that whole thing of Fricano's is you hear about Costco and some other big corporations making a stand, and if I boycott it, they're not going to know. But if I boycott it for Fricano's, they're going to feel it. They're small business.
Small business.
My business matters. And that they're taking a stand and they're not feeling it. Finally, small businesses are kind of getting the support they should be getting.
Diane Schindlbeck, thank you very much for what
Thank
you
you
do.
for so much for
Miles
having me here today.
Miles and Ludwig and Brian, thank you very much. Listen, folks, this coming election, whatever you do, even if you don't agree with me, you think I'm nuts and you're going to vote for the Hildebeest, whatever you do, vote. This is what we're all fighting for. It's what people have died for. Get involved. Please do it. That's civic duty. It's not like a civic luxury. It's a civic duty. I honestly, passionately feel that way. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter. I did it. Follow us on Twitter.
Oh, wait for it.
I know it. I got to sneak up on that. Talk Mike Hewitt on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook /The Mike Hewitt Show. Folks, thank you very, very much. We'll see you next week.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.